Hello modelers, and welcome back to 72 Carat Car Classics. Today I'm going to be building the first of 6 World Rally cars from the 2000 to 2003 season. This is a kit made by Airfix. It's long out of production now, and it's also in a slightly smaller scale of 1/43rd scale. So there's not a lot of parts to these kits, probably about 30 maximum in each one. But I'm going to be looking to put as much detail as I can into each one. I'm not a massive fan when it comes to modelling of photo etch parts and detail up parts. I believe in making as much as I can from scratch and just using my imagination to make things. So in this video, even though it seems long at 55 minutes long, there is going to be a lot going on. So I'm going to be making my own custom tyre treads and tyre valves. I'm going to be making realistic looking indicator lenses along with my rear light clusters. I'm going to show you how to create a steering angle, and I've also got a way of making realistic looking mirrors, aerials and exhausts. And the piece de la resistance is I've made some bonnet and boot fastener clips using my wife's hair. Never done that one before. It wasn't all of her hair, don't worry, it was just one strand. But I'll show you how I use that in order to make the fastener clips. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's long, like I say. Get yourself a hot or cold drink, take a seat, sit back, and if you can't watch it all in one go, just put it on your watch list and come back to it when you've got some time. Obviously do the usual stuff, subscribe, like, share, all that, because that's just going to help my channel build, and it is relatively new. So thanks for your support, and I hope you enjoy the video. The aerial parts on this kit usually come a little bit too big, and they don't really look that realistic, so I might just leave these ones out here and fill in the spaces and just make my own from some sprue that I can stretch. The rear of the car was slightly damaged when I took it out of the box. I don't really know how that happened. Doesn't matter though, you just get a little bit of glue and you can literally bond the plastic together and then fill it with putty afterwards. The rear light clusters in this kit come with 2 grooves, one on the top, one on the bottom. When you look at light clusters from the Subaru 2002 versions, they're a lot more complex with 5 light lenses within just the one pane. So I'm going to try and emulate that. I have to start with a clean slate, so I'm just going to fill it, make it smooth, and then Dremel from a blank slate. It might look like I'm hacking all the plastic out of this kit, but trust me, the deeper you can go with these panel lines, the better in the early stages. If you paint like me, you're probably going to put maybe 5 or 6 coats, including the primer, onto these kits. And by the time you get to layer 6 or 7, those panel lines can literally disappear if you don't groove them deep enough from the beginning. So, dig as much as you can. Obviously don't go through it completely, but like I said, the deeper the better. I've discovered my own way of making realistic indicator lenses. Not just on the 143rd kits, but also the 124th kits. A lot of them come with just molded plastic, whatever the body color is, without a separate lens. So I like to remove my lenses and replace them with clear ones, and then paint them clear orange with a silver backing. These clear parts are so small, you really need to be careful. So I like to stick them onto a piece of masking tape, and I do bag everything anyway because, like I said, the parts are so small, easily a steering wheel or a gear shift or gear stick can go missing. So just put them all in a bag. Lenses here have a little groove where the reverse and indicator lights will go, which are kind of coloured silver. I use that as a template to mark out where that's going to be. It's really important to get that right, because otherwise when you start dremeling and putting the individual lights in certain places, you've got to make sure that you've got that right. So use reference pictures as much as you can. Look for rear light clusters from 2002 WRC cars or even road versions, because they're very similar. It's really important not to rush this process, because it does take a while to dig out the plastic, and also you don't want to go too deep and too heavy, just in case you go through the plastic. But just make sure that you've got them in the right place and that you're periodically going back, putting the lens in place just to check that you've got it in the right place, and literally carving it out. Use a drill bit slightly smaller than the indicator and just drill through the middle of it, deep enough to go into the bodywork. This will help you have a reference point once you Dremel off the indicator, because it will leave a slight hole in the bodywork for you to know where to put your new indicator lens. Because the hole is so small, when you put the indicator lens on top of it, it will cover that hole anyway and you won't even know it was there. 1/43rd and 1/32nd scale kits normally don't come with a lot of detail. The exhausts are usually quite flat and just like almost a stick or a rod coming out with no depth. So I like to drill out the hole just to make it look more authentic to the real thing. They say whenever you bond plastic parts together, it's good to have plastic to plastic rather than paint to paint to make a better bond. I don't always follow that rule, but in this case I'm going to be painting the floor of this Subaru metallic blue with a few coats. So I'm going to put mask oil down just to so that I can chip it off afterwards and it will be easier to reveal the plastic underneath. After all the sanding's done, I like to go over the whole body with 1200 grit sandpaper. It's just gritty enough to help the paint bond, and then once I've finished my wet coats and I've done all the spraying, then I can go over it with finer sandpaper to get rid of any orange peel. It's very, very rare that you get a kit with realistic looking mirrors unless you're going to spend a lot of money on a kit. In excess of £40–50 maybe, you will get it. But for these cheaper kits, the only option you've really got is to paint them silver. I was lucky enough to stumble across some mirrored plastic that I've kept for all my models, but I basically just make a template using masking tape, cut that out really carefully, stick it on top of the mirrored plastic, and then cut that out to shape. And then whether it's going in a mirror housing or going straight on top, in this case, I can just stick it straight on. Because of the thickness of the mirrored plastic, you find that there's a slight line in between what you've just glued onto. So I just get some putty and make that smooth just to make it look like it's all one part. I found a way to emulate fabric on a car seat. Rather than using flocking that you can buy from model stores, I've actually recycled my DIY projects from any woodwork that I've done. So I keep the sawdust from my sander in a bag, and when I come to use it on my models, I make or spray a wet coat of whatever color I'm spraying, whether it's gray or black. In this case it's matte black. Spray it wet enough so that it doesn't run, but it's heavy enough to have the sawdust stick, and then literally sprinkle the sawdust on, let that settle and sink into the paint. When you've done that with both your seats, then you can literally get a brush and then brush it off, or brush most of the excess off. You can repeat this process if you don't feel it's either thick enough, or if it's too thick you can remove as much as you possibly can until it's to your liking. When you're happy with how it looks, you can just go ahead and spray it again in the color that you were using. I used the same method on my steering wheel as I did on the seats, just to emulate some fabric around the steering wheel. As I'm always thriving to make my cars look as realistic as possible, I always go for the tyre valve in the alloy wheel. As you know, every car has them. It's a little bit easier on the 1/24 scale kits, but when you do it on the 1/43 scale kit, it can be a little bit finicky and a little bit frustrating. So make sure you've got the patience before you try and tackle it. But if you have, then just get yourself a piece of sprue, stretch it mega thin, and then cut it also very short, because you don't want that to protrude past the alloy wheel, otherwise it won't look as authentic. But if you're giving this a go for the first time, good luck. Now that the seats I've made have a rough surface, use microsole just to help the decal set in and bed in to the contours. I found a really unique way of making the seat belts look more realistic and come away from the seat. I'm using some household foil here. I've got it the dull side up and shiny side down. And basically, as you probably know from 1/43, 1/32 and 1/24 scale kits, most of the seat belts are decals, but when you place those onto the seat, they literally sit on the contours of the seat, so they look quite flat and there's no way of raising them. I have tried different effects like masking tape before, but they look very thick and not that authentic. But this way I found really does work, because it also bends, the foil bends with the decal without ripping it or making it split. So it's very malleable and you can move it wherever you want to, which pretty much like a real seatbelt. So once you've put down some micro set on the foil, you can place the decals on the dull side up. Once that's all set, you can put some micro sole down just to help it bed in even deeper, and then walk away from that, let it dry, and then come back with a crafting knife and then just craft out your seatbelt. And what you'll find is once you even if you're not that accurate, you can tidy up the sides where you can see the foil with some matte black paint, because the borders of these seatbelts are black anyway, so that can work. The good thing about using PVA glue here is that you get quite a lot of time to work with it before it sets, and when it does set, it sets very well. The other thing is, if you get any residue, it dries clear. It might be a different shade, it might be semi-glossy or glossy, but you can actually tidy that up with whichever colour you were using to colour your seat. Like I said earlier, any foil that you can see, literally just go over with some matte black paint just to tidy it up. I'm just going to put Marsco on my mirrors now before I spray the car. It's one of those things that you can easily forget to do before you spray. Some detailing just isn't worth doing, and this was one of them. I realised afterwards that all this work kind of goes on scene. It did work well on a 143rd Peugeot 206 that I did, but I guess trial and error, you've got to find out what works and what you can actually see at the end.
November came, man, I wish it was
It's always the case when I'm looking at reference pictures to these cars that I miss something that is really in my face, and in this case it was the exhaust. After I drilled the hole and I was looking at it with the rear on, I realized that it was really skinny and in the wrong place. So after looking at some more pictures of the WRC 02 car, I just used a bit of Q-tip and cut that to size, and then dremeled out the because it's actually coming straight out of the, not out of the bumper, but it's massively carved into the bumper if you look at the real kit, with a little sort of heat guard, it looks like, above it. So I'm going to try and emulate both by dremeling out the body and some of the chassis as well, so that I can fit this tube of Q-tip, and then I'm going to paint the guard in a sort of goldy colour after. I'm going to be changing the stance of the car to make it look more authentic. When you put the alloys on this kit, they sit underneath the body rather than flush with the wings or fenders, depending on where you live. So I'm going to need to remove them and put them on and make fine adjustments. So I'm going to remove these nubs, as they're like a snap lock design, so once you've got them on you can't actually get them off. So by removing that, I can take them on and off as I see fit. When you put the alloys on the regular kit, they sit underneath the bodywork, which doesn't look that authentic. So in order to make it look more realistic, you need to push the alloys out so that they're in line or flush with the wings or fenders, depending on where you live. So in order to do this, you have to make a spacer, and for me, I found that the Q-tips that I used for the exhaust in this model were the perfect size to go over the axles that were sort of sawn down. And then from there you can literally just glue them into place. Obviously the wheels won't rotate, but most models are static anyway, and I'm a bit too old to be playing with the models that I make anyway, so just sitting there would be fine. I'll just show you what it looks like when you don't do this, and you'll find that, yeah, compared to the real thing, you'll notice that it doesn't look like it's sitting in the right place. After putting the alloys on straight, I felt I wanted a bit of a change with maybe a steering angle. So you can literally cut these, you can eyeball them about 30 degrees, maybe 40, and make sure you cut both sides at the same angle and also the same thickness, and then you'll find that when you put these in place, you can just glue the alloys on top of the angle, and then you'll have what looks like steering. Cars in the 80s came with slick tyres, but around the 2000 era there weren't such a thing, and there was this basic crisscross pattern that most cars used to have around this era. I'm going to emulate this by drawing it out with a pencil first, and then I'm going to use my scriber to sort of scribe out the plastic to make it look like a real tread pattern. It is arduous, it takes a bit of time to do, but once you've got it done, it makes or brings a whole lot more realism to the kit that you're making. Be careful when handling the decals, as they're very thin and they can also fold under each other, which makes it really difficult to kind of get them to lay right on the car. Whenever I watch people do this on YouTube videos, they make it look so effortless and smooth. Me, I'm all fingers and thumbs, but as long as I get the same result in the end, I'm happy. just going to paint the indicators clear orange, and once I've done that I'll make sure that the backing of it is a silver colour just to bring out the orange. I'm going to separate the reverse lights from the decal for the rear tail lights, so that I can use it as a template to mark out. I like to spray my lenses rather than put the decals that come with the kit. It looks way more realistic, and also I've done all that work underneath to show the individual light lenses through them. You don't really want to miss that. So I'm going to make 4 sets, 2 for the inside, 2 for the outside, spray the inside and outside clear red, and then when I remove the masking tape I should have the clear, which I'm going to spray a mist of silver just so that it's not completely see-through. When I was spraying the rear light clusters clear red, I decided to use X7 red as well on the inside, just so that it wasn't so transparent and you couldn't see through it as easy. Put your indicator lenses on before you do any clear coating. This will just create a barrier and help have a better bond. When you look closely at the light cluster of a Subaru 2002 rally car, there is an indicator lens, but it's not like your orange that you would normally get on a regular car. It's probably more like an orange bulb that's in a silver housing, so you can kind of get a feel for it, but it's not actually completely orange. Most of the time I use Alclad, and I'm using it here. Yeah, I didn't use it for the rear because it wasn't so much a chrome finish, it was more of a silver finish in the rear reverse lights. And I used the Alclad here in the front, but the light lenses are so small, you don't really pick up that chrome look. So next time I guess I'll probably go with silver. Use PVA glue to glue in any clear parts. This will just help you avoid having any frosting problems later on down the road. This Subaru kit doesn't come with any light lenses, so I used the PVA glue to try and make some. The only problem was when it dried was that it kind of arched the wrong way and was concave. So if I was going to do this again, I'd make sure that the bonnet was hanging down to the ground so you get that more curved look that a lens has. Making sure that the alignment of the alloys is correct is something that's really important to do at this stage, as soon as you're looking at the model you will notice when a wheel is not straight. So it's time to take a knee, put the car on a flat surface and just move it around and check it and adjust it until you're happy with the camber and the way it sits. Make sure before you glue the chassis to the body that you've cleaned it thoroughly. The last thing you want are dust particles on the inside of the screen that you can see when you're displaying your kit. When I do close-up photos of my models, I've made that mistake before and there's no way of removing it once the parts are glued together. So go over it inside and out. You can always do the outside at a later date, but you can never do the inside once you've glued it. So make sure that you've done that. As I showed you right in the beginning, the aerial parts were just a little bit too fat and didn't have any flex in them, and if you put those on a kit it's gonna not look realistic at all. So you can always just get a piece of sprue, stretch it as thin as you like, cut it to size, and then you can make your own base using sprue again but with a thicker circumference and depth, and then you just put the two together. Obviously I make a pilot hole in the base just so that, because it's easy, all you've got to do is catch it with a finger or a hand and it will pop off. So if you can make a little recess and make a little pilot hole, it will sit in there a lot better and be harder to remove. I've taken a really thin piece of sprue and I'm just sanding it both sides to make it more rectangular. This is going to be one of the stages of making my bonnet and boot fastener clips. I'm also going to need a drill bit small enough, and I'm going to wrap my wife's hair around it, and also some PVA glue to go in as the base. I'm going to use some hairspray once I've finally wrapped this piece of hair around a drill bit. Once I've got it tightly coiled, then I'll spray the hairspray on it and hopefully that will set, and after that I can remove it and then try and cut out just one coil at a time to make those circular O-rings that go in the bonnet and boot fasteners. When I use the PVA for my base, I like to work on a smooth surface. Glass is preferable, but you need something so that when the glue sets, you can scrape it off easily with a blade. So once I've put the base down with the PVA glue, then I get my rectangular pieces and then I put my hair in the correct position over that. Once that's set, then I can actually paint it with some silver paint, and I did this and it kind of dried, and then I had to scrape off some of the paint afterwards, so I might let it set completely so that I can scrape it off before painting. That way I can move it around and the paint won't have to be scraped off afterwards. So here's the final reveal. The Subaru 2002 WRC car is complete. The total build took me about 3 weeks to do, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you managed to stay with me the whole 56 minutes without skipping to the end, I admire your dedication. Not many people can do that nowadays. But if you like this video, please subscribe and like. Share it with your friends if you think it's something they could benefit from if they're modelling fans. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Stay modelling, keep modelling, and enjoy yourself when you're doing it. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.